That's a really good one. Oh my God, it's so bad. It's so bad. My name is Lucas Alexis. I am 28 years old. I am from Alexis First Nation, Pashna, West Side.
In your opinion, what is climate change?
Climate change is essentially the warming of the Earth, and I guess it has a whole bunch of side effects, and that's what I think it is.
Okay. Can you define Mother Earth?
Mother Earth, I guess it's the natural world, you know, everything you see. I can't really say if Mother Earth is, you know, spiritual or like in the other, you know, spiritual world. I don't know if that classifies as part of Mother Earth, but yeah, essentially it's the natural world. That's what I would say.
Cool. When you're out in nature, how do you feel when you're surrounded by nature?
At peace. I'm not bugged by, you know, other distractions, and I can focus on what I'm focusing on. When you're out in the countryside and you get used to it, you know, you get a lot of stuff done on your own, so.
What were you taught about respecting Mother Earth as a child?
Don't litter and clean up after yourself. Yeah, pretty much.
Who taught you, both of your parents?
Honestly, I kind of taught myself, but my mom was always, you know, like she would keep the whole entire house clean, and she would make like, you know, make an ordeal about having a clean house. But I think that kind of rubbed off onto me in a certain sense, where it's like, it's dirty to just throw out garbage or to just, you know, not clean up after yourself, right?
Yeah. Does your family own a trapline?
Trapline, no.
Okay. Do you exercise your treaty rights to hunt and fish?
No.
Do you think that climate change affects your treaty rights in any way?
That's a hard question. No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Not me.
Okay.
Maybe other reservations, like the ones without, you know, good running water. The ones up in, you know, in Winnipeg. Yeah, maybe they would be, suffering from stuff like that.
Have environmental problems affected you personally?
Not personally. Well, yeah, actually, I guess when we have those yearly fires up in BC, there's always smoke coming our way, which can, if you're a person who has like even COVID, you can even get affected probably, right?
Yeah.
Or a person who has, you know, bronchitis or any kind of like pneumonia or something, they're definitely going to get affected. I know for a fact. But for me, another way I guess I got affected was we have a pond like right in front of our house, and it used to be like really nice, you know, it was nice, and over the years, like past 4 years, it just turned into a big, like it's not nice anymore. There used to be, you know, life there.
Is there still water there?
There's a little bit of water. Yeah, you can definitely, but it's nothing like what it used to be. Yeah. In
terms of like what it was when you remember it in a very healthy state to now, how much % do you think has gotten smaller?
Worse. About maybe 70%.
Wow.
Yeah. It used to be nice, but now it's not nice. It's essentially it, yeah. There's a lot more dead decay in the water. Like it started mucking up, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's down Pashna Road, you know. It's like at the very west end. You go up the hill, keep going, and then you see like a house on the left. You keep going, and then you come to this clearing, and you see a field, and then you see a pond. But there used to be a pond, but now it's not really a pond anymore.
On the left-hand side?
Yeah, on the left-hand side.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's actually talked about quite often by other people.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like there's a lot of history of people fishing there and picking medicines, and some elders have told me that they would be able to drink that water because it eventually leads to Wakamne, which they just have memories of going there when they were kids and swimming, and yeah.
But those are memories in the past, right?
Yeah.
When everything was, you know, clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does climate change make you feel vulnerable or at risk?
It makes me feel, I guess at risk. powerless to it, I guess. There's nothing I can do because, well, there really isn't one person can't change the whole world sort of deal, right? Unless you're like a billionaire or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm not a billionaire, obviously. But yeah, no, I feel at risk sometimes, yeah.
How does it make you feel?
Me personally, it makes me feel like, should I care? Is it just a uphill battle and we're just gonna lose? That's how I feel about it, you know? It's not like what the people can really do. It's what the government, what all that money, what are they gonna do, you know? So it's kind of goes a little political, if you know what I mean. But yeah, a lot of people with power have a lot of money, and they're the ones who really can change the world. But you know, I guess it's not, you know, it's not in their interest. They want to go to space, I guess, like Elon Musk. You know,
Right?
Yeah, he has other plans. So
An elder told me that in another interview, they just want to go to space and go to another planet, but they'll probably just destroy that one too.
Oh, no way. Oh, that's funny.
What have you heard from elders about our climate?
I guess just the smoke part, you know, where, you know, the BC, it's always BC. BC's under like, oh, it's under so much stress like lately. I mean, there was the fires and now it's the floods, you know. It's like all the prophecies in the Bible are coming true there, you know.
Do you feel like all these things happening in BC, like the wildfires and the landslides, what does that tell you? What does that say to you?
Yeah, just don't live there.
Yeah.
It's too expensive anyway. No, I guess like we were talking earlier about climate change, you know, it's slowly presenting itself in ways that, you know, that are just, you know, coming up from out of nowhere. And that's one of them, you know, the whole flooding part. And I didn't see that coming. I thought it was just going to be another year with a lot of smoke, but no, there's flooding this year. Like, but it's not the first time as I've heard, but you know, it's still something to take note of, you know. But it's not only BC, but there is other parts of the world too that are, you know, suffering from climate change.
Do you feel the effects of it emotionally?
Emotionally, well, honestly, when I heard that I felt pretty bad for all the Australia when the fire went up and all those animals had to like suffer, you know. It was horrible. It's mostly I feel bad for Mother Nature, that, you know, the natural world, the beauty of it, you know, there's a lot of elegance and niceness and, you know, pureness in nature, and humans are just all destroying kind of deal. But I'm not like an advocate who's going to go fight, you know, the higher power, but it's just kind of like, oh, it's a sad world, you know?
Yeah.
Sort of deal.
It feels like that
Yeah.
sometimes.
It feels kind of hopeless, you know?
Do you think that the youth have a voice when it comes to protecting the environment?
Well, they should, because they're the next generation who's going to live on the, you know, the land. But like for Alexis, for the nation, it's hard to say because no one shows any interest in it. So it's kind of limited because there's so much of us, yet there's like maybe like just a fraction of us who, like a small fraction of us who care about, you know, the environment. I mean, but there are like, you know, spring cleanups, and they do, you know, like people my generation, they do step in and, you know, step it up. But as for the whole, like make a huge impact, I'm not really sure.
How do you think this can be achieved? How do you think you can involve youth more?
To involve youth? Well, it's probably a marketing problem, because there's no way of marketing to make youth interested in wanting to change the environment. Like there's no incentive, maybe there needs to be funding for, you know, job placements to clean the lake, or whenever there's like a spill, or I know a lot of people pick bottles around here, but that's because you know, they get an incentive out of it, right? You get money, so it's also kind of like hard to find any sort of direction when you're kind of directionless out here. You got to start up your own thing if you're gonna try to, you know, well, at least I think if you got to start your own thing if you want to make an environmental impact. Likewise, I was saying the whole spring cleanup is started off like a Facebook post, but it's usually done by the administration band office.
You feel that you'd have to take an initiative to start something yourself versus the community at this point really engaging the youth in sort of environmental activities that better the property we live on.
Because it's not consistent, right? It's only like periodically. But if you really want to make an impact, I think you do have to take that extra step.
Whose responsibility do you think it is to take care of the environment? Is it for the youth or the elders or?
A bit of, I think both. It really, depends on what consensus we can make between generations, what we can both agree on, because not everything we can agree on. And but if we can both agree on that, the environment needs help, I think we can maybe edge towards something like that.
In your opinion, how do you think that our community could educate the youth in having some, I wouldn't say ownership, but involvement in bettering the environment?
Environment, that's Well, I think it's important to bring it up at band meetings or staff meetings, but it's never really brought up as an issue, or no one's really talking about it. The only times it was ever talked about is if families are suffering and we send our prayers to them, but that's the only way that they get lightened on the disaster or issues like that. But any single tool, I don't know. That's kind of a marketing thing too.
Okay.
You gotta learn how to market, and there's got to be, like I said, an incentive for them, or because I don't think anyone's gonna care that it's getting hotter. You're just gonna live in it. It's like there's a saying on the internet that goes, if you put a frog inside of a boiling, or if you put a frog inside of a boiling pot of water, it's just gonna hop out. But if you let it sit there and it slowly boils, he's just gonna sit in it and he's just gonna burn it. And that's kind of how humans are. But so it's really that's a tough question to answer.
Do you feel optimistic or pessimistic when it comes to thinking about the state of the environment and how it will be left for future generations? Do you think there's hope?
On one side, I want to be hopeful, but yet it's just scientists always say this and that, and it's we got a pandemic and the population's rising.
Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of things against humanity in the future generations. Like right now, it feels like this is the calm before the storm, but in the future, the storm's going to be there. And that's what I feel like it's going to happen. Like in 2050, when I'm like 60 years old, we're going to be like, oh God, I told you guys, or something.
Yeah, right?
It's hard to say though. Yeah, it's really hard to say. It's like I said, no one man can, it's the guys with the money and the power that can really change what society is.
On a global scale, what steps do you want world leaders to take to address the environmental problems that affect our world?
I guess find solutions for problems. Each leader has a set of different regions to deal with. For instance, people in Nigeria have to deal with dirty drinking water, so they have to deal with that issue. Meanwhile, in the California region, they have to deal with the drought, and they're losing a lot of water, and that water goes down a dam, and that's powering the city. But since there's a drought and they're losing a massive amount of water, they gotta, transport water in. They gotta take measures to, keep that water there, so it can power the dam. Like I said, though, I guess every region's different. So, and Winnipeg, like I said earlier, has to deal with the Indigenous communities not having clean drinking water, right? And so I guess if I was to say what should be done, whatever needs to be done should be done, but it's not being done. It's just not being done. So I guess it's the collective interest of those people with the money, like I said earlier. money, it's always money. I hate to say it, but sometimes, yeah.
When it comes to the issues that we face in this community, what do you think are the top 3 issues that leadership should be addressing?
Top 3 issues. I would have to say, that's a good question because there's a few issues, but I know everyone's going to say the drugs in our community. I would have to say, yeah, I kind of agree. But there's also preventative measures, which we probably should take into account. But I don't think anyone's really focused on, the recovery of people, of said victims who grew up in a hard reality. And I guess that's where it blooms for the drugs, because that's a big issue in our community. Drugs, alcohol, addiction. Addiction's a big, it's a big community problem.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much the only problem I can think of right off the hop. But as in like a second and a third problem, I would see maybe investing on more projects that can get them, ban more money. But I'm no person to say much about that, but it's good to have, more money. But yeah, those are only 2 I can really think of off my head.
Say someone my age group, I'm 36, versus someone in your age group. Do you think that there's more awareness about the consequences of using drugs and alcohol? Was that included more heavily in your studies as you grew up, or through media? Was it promoted, or was it more looked at as not a good thing, not a healthy thing to advance yourself?
From my perspective, I guess it was a self-destructive thing, but I guess everyone has their, I guess every generation, is different towards those, substances like drugs and alcohol. For instance, the older generation might look down on cannabis because they're raised up in a world where cannabis is illegal, completely illegal. Like you get arrested. But now it's completely fine to just, use cannabis. And the average person is not probably going to care or criminalize it or, demonize it, just demonize a user, not look down so much upon. But as for alcohol, it's so accepted into society that that's a hard one. It's really hard to like fix a person who's in that, mental state, because they got to pull themselves out too. And if they don't want to, if they just want to keep doing what they're doing, you can't really help them. There's only so far you can help them before it's them who makes the ultimate choice. Yeah. So, but what was the question again?
Oh, it's okay. I guess I was kind of made it really broad, but what I'm looking for is like, I'm wondering if like younger generations are just looking at this sort, like alcohol, for instance, very differently. Like, is it something that youth engage in, or is it more frowned upon? Like it's more of a cooler thing not to drink.
Oh yeah, it doesn't align with their traditions. It's good to be a clean, sober native, and that's like the ideal native, because apparently like if you use a substance, you're colonized, and that's what they like saying about it. I know like other natives who are like in other like Musquechies, they say the same thing too. Like you're a colonized native if you drink or if you use drugs. Yeah, and I can see where they're coming from. Yeah, it kind of makes sense. So,
what do you think about racism? How do you think that racism is still the same as it was 5-10 years ago, or do you feel like there's positive change happening?
I feel like racists are I guess they're being put down more. Yeah. Since the rise of the internet, there's a lot more communication going around, which makes, racist groups a lot more secretive. So, it's kind of the up-down kind of thing going on with that. But yeah, it's probably getting less, it's just getting less acknowledged in our world as a positive thing, that's for sure. Because like, I guess the more people get enlightened about, the history and past of people's like cultures, they start to gain insight on what really happened,
Have you experienced racism? Was there an incident where it stuck with you?
I guess in my lifetime, I've had a few racist encounters. That's so funny. I was playing hockey, and there was like redneck dads on the other team, and they would say like hit him, and like I wasn't hitting hockey at the time, and it's like, yeah, it gets pretty intense. But that was a long time ago. That was when I was like, I don't know, 16, 17.
Okay.
But nowadays, I guess the recent one was I went inside a store, and then that lady was like checking, like see if I'm stealing anything.
Yeah.
And I'm like looking, and she's just looking at me, and I'm like, and she keeps like looking at me. I'm like, oh my God.
I know.
Can I help with something? Nah, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's...
The worst is like when they follow you continuously and they keep organizing
Oh my
shelves.
God,
and you're
it's
like,
so bad.
I know what you're doing.
It's so bad. Oh my God. But yeah,
But I guess.
I had racist encounters like when I was playing like video games online, but that's nothing new because there's always racist stuff going down on there. So it's it's crazy. It's crazy. There's a lot of crazy people in the world.
What traditional knowledge was passed down to you?
Traditional knowledge? Well, I guess I can say for myself, I've been more of a whitewash in my life, which is essentially I kind of distanced myself from the reservation because my parents didn't want me to grow up on the res. But I came back, and I've learned some things over the years, and not a lot, but just enough to know how to set up a TP, for instance. Know how to skin a moose. I guess that's kind of important if you want to live off the land. Berry picking's another thing, but I'm not an outdoorsy person who's going to go do all that stuff or practice it on the yearly. But I do know of it. But I did participate in the past. And as for the traditions, I guess I'm working on the dictionary, so I'm learning the language. And I guess that's one of the first steps to trying to revitalize yourself with the traditions of the past.
Working on that project and with language and heritage, have you found that your experience is healing?
It was for a sec until the pandemic hit, and we had to work from home. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, because it's good to have the elders' influence around you. It changes a person. It's like whoever you surround yourself with, it affects you, and I really believe that. I really do.
Okay, so Jenna, as you met earlier, and another team member, Josiah, are part of them being here is really wanting to learn and help and grow and use their education where they can. So the question is, how might you suggest that they learn more about our community as well as Sioux people in general?
And who's they?
The students, like just people that are not, I guess in general, people that are not from our community. It's just, sorry.
How would they learn about us?
Yeah, like how would you like to see non-community members learn about our community?
Get on the app. Get on the Stony Dictionary app. That's I know it's selfless promotion or selfish promotion, but selfless promotion. That's so not selfless.
No,
no.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's
okay. It's okay.
But yeah. That's probably like a good starting point is just to check out the language.
Cool.
Yeah, and check out the powwow. There used to be a pilgrimage, but not necessarily anymore. There used to be like, campers would camp, and then they would go camp over there right after, So it was kind of that was nice. Yeah, that was a good way of taking in, everything that Alexis has to offer. But it's a pandemic now, so it's not really the same. I guess they had the powwow last year, though, which was huge.
I know, it was amazing.
I never went, though, but I heard it was huge. Yeah, I know.
You have to come this year.
Yeah, it was just, yeah.
I do have one more question because I'm just so curious, but then that's it. When things were brought to light about residential schools and unmarked graves, What was your response to that? Like, how did you feel?
Let me think about that, because I did feel bad. I felt there's some pity for the people of the past in the residential schools. I mean, the natives went through a lot. Our ancestors. I can only think of how much they went through, how many times they've been through a different school, or they've been sent off to a labor camp, or I guess I was always just thinking, comparing it to other events of history as well, where it's like humanity's just it's like that in every direction of the world, it seems. And yeah, I'm just glad we live in a lot different time period, that's for sure. I'm grateful, actually. I'm very grateful. I mean, it still happens in some parts of the world, sadly, but as for the suffering, I'm glad at least Canada said sorry after like what 60, 50 years or something. I forgot how long it was, but yeah.
You know what? That's pretty incredible that you can think like that. You think back and it wasn't that long ago and you think, why was this even happening? However, like, that's an interesting way to look at it. It's like you actually think that, I don't know, that the government has taken some sort of responsibility. Interesting.
But there's still police and they're still enforcing pipelines on being built on land. So, I mean, who's to say if they're really sorry,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel
it's just a Band-Aid. I don't know.
Upset a lot.
Yeah.
But anyways, thank you for meeting with me, Luke. You gave some like really interesting perspective. It's really interesting to see what you think about our world right now and what's going on.
It's been a pleasure. Yep.
Yeah.